because many people who were involved in organized crime phoned people up who were relatives.
But a lot of the initial political impact at this case was the sense that the legislature had been raised in connection with organized crime.
John Ward's news conference set the tone for the early reporting of this case, that it wasn't about BC Rail, it was about organized crime, it was about drugs in the legislature. This was all somehow connected to this gigantic criminal organization and activity. And now, of course, as months go by and as evidence is disclosed and things are said in court, it's become apparent that really wasn't the case. And so the impression left by the RCMP on day one, for now anyways, turns out to be a very false one. And the one we're left with as the court dates continue is something of a much smaller scale that is not what John Ward was talking about that day.
We got one more thing we want to cover in this first little segment, because I just want to wrap this up. And we've talked a couple of times about the BC Rail sale. We've talked about the allegation that there was going to be a consolation prize and it was going to be the sale of this port railway. Not long after the raid on the legislature buildings, the minister, by now, of transportation, is advised by the RCMP that the sale of the port railway, which was offered for sale and was going through a bidding process, may have been compromised by the subject of the investigation. They're looking into this case. They've come across evidence that the sale may have been compromised. Some information may have been passed to one of the bidders. We don't know the exact details of the alleged compromise. And what we get is a press conference with the transportation minister, who by this point is Kevin Falcon, announcing that the sale of the port railway is cancelled. Here's Kevin Falcon.
I am accepting and acting on the Evaluation Committee's recommendation to terminate the request for proposals for the port subdivision until further notice. The government reserves the right to retender the port subdivision at a future date. Terminating the port subdivision request for proposal will not have a financial impact on government. Again, I would like to reiterate that the restructuring of the port subdivision is an entirely separate initiative and has no bearing on the $1 billion BC Rail CN investment partnership.
So the allegation is that the government, and this is allegation, right? The allegation is the government's trying to sell the government railway. They're trying to make it look like a viable bidding process. In order to keep the process alive, somebody hints to the number 2 bidder, you stay in the process, there'll be something, you'll have a good shot at getting down the line. And when all this ends up on wiretaps, the police go to the government and say, you better cancel that second sale because we're not 100% sure that the sale wasn't compromised. And at that dramatic moment, we're going to leave this, take a brief break on Voice of BC, and we'll be back to talk about some of the stuff that's actually going on with the court case. Stay with us.
Your answers are somewhat ambiguous to these questions.
The challenge.
So can you give us some assurance that, you know, does the public know everything? You say you want to be open and transparent.
I can assure you that the public, and nor me, nor Gordon Campbell, knows everything here. I do not know everything. And the frustration I have, Mike, I know, you know, one of your jobs is to speculate. You know, have a good time speculating.
I don't want to speculate. I want you to tell us what you know.
I've told you what I know.
No, you haven't.
D Menzies Street, Victoria, BC, V8V2H2. Fax us at area code 250-361-4821 or email us at vobc@sjrb.ca.
Many farmers in the developing world are trying to survive.
Breaking the law. This is influence peddling, if these allegations have any truth to them. And of course, people are innocent in this country until they're proven guilty. But here we go into the legislature with television cameras, we drag this out, we make accusations, media runs with the story, everybody talks about it in the coffee shops. Well, it's one of those things that the sooner it gets out into the public, in the court system, the better for everyone.
Associated with any aspect of this case. We're trying to sort through all this tonight. It was good of Bob to mention that, you know, people are innocent until proven guilty in this country. You've got three accused in this case, and we're going to talk about 2 of them here, who have been waiting and waiting with their lives on hold for years now for this thing to be sorted out. Neil Hall, the accused and the charges.
Many, many months later, the charges
after the raid,
the charges were finally laid. It was breach of trust, fraud, and accepting a benefit. Accepting a benefit, apparently a sum of $25,000, maybe more, once you add it all up. The aides were accused of accepting this money in exchange for confidential government documents to do with BC Rail, giving them to, which were then given by a government lobbyist to Omnitracks. Well, we don't know if they were or not. I mean, all we know is that the allegation is that they
and Keith,
accepted
tell us a little bit about these two accused.
Dave Bazzi was ministerial assistant to Gary Collins. Bob Verk was ministerial assistant to then Transportation Minister Judith Reed. You can see them there. That's of course photos taken, well, more than 4 years ago, so they haven't aged much, but I've maintained contact with them and see them regularly. They've been waiting for a long time to have what they consider they want their reputations cleared. They say their lives have been put on hold, they're unemployable. The upside is they get to spend a lot of time at home, they joke with their kids. Bob Verk's had 2 children since the raid. So he said actually had 2 kids since the raid, and they were both highly regarded in government at the time. Dave Bazzi, very active in the Federal Liberal Party. And the joke is his cell phone was tapped. You could not have picked a more political cell phone to tap in the government than Dave Bazzi's, because everybody phoned him. He was Gary Collins was also the government House Leader, which was really what Dave Bazzi's responsibilities were. So MLAs phoned him, political stuff. Members of the press gallery. I'm sure we're all on those wiretaps talking to Dave Bazzi, because everybody talked to Dave Bazzi and everybody talked to him on a cell phone.
And innocent until proven guilty. They deny any wrongdoing. They say anything they did, their political masters in government asked them to do it, and they say they were protecting the public interest as well, but they haven't had their day in court, and the evidence against them hasn't been presented either. However, there are some very interesting things about this case that we do know a little bit about, and we're going to go back to Tillman to take through some of the unusual aspects of this case, some of the mysteries of this case, and we're going to start with Bill talking about the Crown's star witness in the case. Here's Bill Tillman.
The key Crown witness in the BC Legislature raid case, or the Bazzi-Verk case, is Eric Bornman, a very colorful individual who has a checkered past in political operations. Mr. Bornman has been active in both the federal and provincial Liberal Party, and has also been an aide to Paul Martin at one point before Mr. Martin was the Prime Minister. Eric Bornman is alleged by police to have provided benefits to David Bazzi and Bob Verk in exchange for information, confidential information, about the BC Rail deal. And yet he's never been charged, has not been charged with any offense. He has obviously made some sort of a deal, which the defense is trying to get put on the record in court in public. That's never happened so far.
Do we know more than that about Eric Bornman?
No, and it was curious when we found out, that there was some kind of deal cut. But when you look at it, a government official, a person acting for government, has a duty to act for the benefit of government. Yeah. Did Mr. Bornman have that same kind of duty? So, should he be charged? I guess it's whoever gets the prosecutor first and cuts the deal. I don't know who.
Yeah, and he is the star witness. I mean, we haven't heard his testimony yet, but
we haven't heard one word of testimony.
And Bill Tillman, I note, almost as a hobby, seems to track Eric Bornman's travels through the legal system, because Eric Bornman, of course, went to law school, and he's been trying to get into different law societies around North America. And Bill has found out where he has been applying, and of course, to get into a law society and pass the bar, you've got to prove your good conduct part of the application. And that particular activity, alleged activity involving Mr. Bornman, and whether any cash was paid out, whether there was a criminal activity he was a participant in, that's going to come up in a law society here. And I noted on Bill Tillman's website today, he posts, I believe it's today, maybe I got it wrong, I thought there was another reference that Mr. Borman's got another hearing coming up.
Okay, if you think that's intriguing, try this one. Here's Mr. Tillman talking about the secret witnesses in this case. Yes, there are secret witnesses. Here's Bill Tillman.
One of the reasons that this trial has been delayed is because the Crown hopes to hear from a secret witness, someone who would testify with only the judge and the prosecution in the courtroom, not the defense, not even the defense lawyers. The Special Prosecutor, Bill Bardino, is appealing a ruling by Justice Elizabeth Bennett that said the lawyers for the defense at least could be in the room for the testimony. And yet, we can't speculate who that secret witness might be. In fact, I killed a 24 Hours column doing just that on legal advice. Again, one of the stranger twists in a very strange case.
You're accused of serious crimes, and there's a secret witness against you, and your lawyer can't get in court and find out who it is and hear what the accusations are against you. This is an interesting case. There's actually 2 secret witnesses, right, Neil Hall?
Apparently, well, who they are, we don't